Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook, Chapter 11, Invincible Ability. In order to hide his strength, Lu Yu has never had the opportunity to use his omnipotent abilities in actual combat. Who would have thought that this opportunity would come right at your door? In thinking, the furniture in the room has begun to hang a layer of hoarfrost. If Lu Yu Reiatsu hadn't been strong enough to protect his body in time, his body would have frozen. Immediately, Lu Yu's figure flashed, and he slashed at the sleeping little silver-haired little boy with a knife. There are all kinds of things, rule the world. All laws and all things are false. The unimaginable scene was conveyed from the mountains that turned into swords. In the incomparably vast world of knives, the ancient trees are towering, the mountains are continuous, the sky is high and the earth is wide and boundless. A sky-reaching blade descended from the sky and penetrated the heaven and earth. Turned into a phantom, a sword struck a cold, majestic white ice dragon on the ground. The white ice dragon struggled hard, causing countless frost and blizzards with great force, but it couldn't help but firmly nailed to the body. The vast world is filled with the high-pitched dragon roar of the white ice dragon reaching into the sky. Thousands of ice and snow fell, widening the sky and the earth. However, the huge grotesque that pierced through the heavens and the earth still remained motionless. Isn't this Hirenmaru, the strongest ice element? Hello, Lu Yu greeted indifferently while looking at the image passed from Zanpakuto. Then, he gently handed everything forward. There must be a limit to playing around. In an instant, the white ice dragon disappeared, turning into a spiritual child and disappearing completely. Just a shot, Sen Luo Wanxiang easily suppressed the strongest ice element Zanpakuto. Dominate everything. This is the ability of all kinds of things. As long as Reiatsu is enough, Lu Yu can bring everything under his control. Whether it is physical matter or void energy, or even conceptual rule ability, everything can be controlled. This ability is invincible, although it needs to consume a huge amount of Reiatsu when it is released, and the conditions are harsh, but the power is really unmatched, and it is not an exaggeration to say that it can control the world. As expected of an S-class Zanpakuto. With a single thought, everything, tangible or intangible, must be controlled by it. Everything is allowed. Anything is possible. Of course, there are also many restrictions. First of all, it can only take effect on a single target. Secondly, Lu Yu must have a clear understanding of the role target and have an absolute advantage in Reiatsu strength. The stronger Reiatsu, the more adequate and correct the information, and the stronger the control over everything. When it comes to cognition of Hirenmaru, Lu Yu understands better than Hirenmaru and Xiaobai. Not to mention Reiatsu, the entire Soul Society can't find a few who can reach the captain level. Therefore, Lu Yu was naturally able to easily suppress Hirenmaru and put it back into a deep sleep. After Hirenmaru disappeared, Hitsugaya Toshiro rubbed his eyes and woke up. Looking at the frost around him, his face turned pale. Trouble again. Relax, it's all right. It's just that your knife is a little angry when you get up. I've solved it. As he said, Lu Yu took back Shikai's all kinds of things. Just now, the surrounding cold air filled the air, but these cold air were all pointed to the end, and did not pass out at all. Thank you, Lu Yu. I'm so useless to keep bothering you. Hitsugaya Toshiro was depressed. He doesn't want to hurt anyone, but this ability is not under his control. If only I could have the strength of Lu Yu. You just got the sealed state, you're too excited to cause such a phenomenon, just wait until you can Shikai. Lu Yu comforted Hitsugaya Toshiro. The potential of the silver-haired little boy, needless to say, the identity of the youngest future Captain Shinigami has already explained everything. However, due to the lack of accumulation, this will be powerless. Ah, Shikai. Hitsugaya Toshiro looked at the sealed state in his hand, only to feel that the huge figure calling his name in the dream was so close and so far away. It's obviously my knife. Why don't you listen to me, but listen to Lu Yu's? Lu Yu said seriously, don't be discouraged. Except for me, the entire Spiritual Arts Academy is not your opponent. You just chose the wrong object for comparison. Hirenmaru's target is Ryujin Jaka, whose attack power is even enough to destroy the three realms. Such Zanpakuto is enough to look down on anyone except himself. Then, Lu Yu flipped his right hand, and a bowl of steaming, fragrant ramen appeared in his hand. The fragrance is mouthwatering. After working for most of the night, he was really hungry. Picking up a pair of chopsticks, Luyu tasted the famous Ichiraku ramen with anticipation. It's amazing that this ramen still exists in the form of spirits. Well, let's not say that this beef ramen is really beef ramen. The taste can only be considered good, but it is still a bit far from the identity of Otsutsuki Ichiraku. Sure enough, it is still the most reliable Chinese food, and the dishes that do not shine are so delicious. Where did you come from the ramen? It's quite fragrant. The little boy took a pitiful saliva. Even if you use zanpakuto unconsciously, the consumption is still very large, and when you are growing your body, you will be hungry faster. Fragrance. Luyu finished taking 3 or 2 bites and burped, "It's a pity that I ate them all." Grass. Hitsugaya Toshiro's forehead jumped, "My knife." The next day, Luyu and Hitsugaya Toshiro came to the classroom of the special class together. After some self-introduction, the little boy chose a seat by the window in the back row without anyone else. Luyu first greeted Hinamori Momo, who was waving desperately to the two of them. Then, he took a seat in the back row of little boy Hitsugaya Toshiro. "Hinamori, do you know this person? He's so handsome." The brunette girl next to Hinamori Momo looked 8 trigrams. "We're just friends." After speaking, Hinamori Momo added, "Best friends. Hitsugaya Toshiro is a younger brother, not a friend. Luyu is indeed the best friend." "Well, that's right. Best friend, so good." The brunette girl deliberately lengthened her voice. "Ha, and transfer students." Abarai Renji, with red hair like a bad boy, was a little puzzled. Doesn't this special class mean that the requirements are very high? If you add people, or 2 at a time. Is it a group with that dog-eyed Tsunayashiro Masao? Thinking of the hateful arrogant faces of those nobles, he clenched his fists. Sooner or later, one day, you won't be able to laugh. Socialist Kira Izuru is in a very relaxed mood, thinking about how to make a good relationship with Luyu and the others and make friends. Only the dark-haired man with dark eyes in the front row snorted coldly and said disdainfully, "Cut. There is more and more rubbish. What do you think of Serai tea? I'll see you later." After Daewoo Nahara Yan Wulang's usual half-brainwashing and half-encouraging remarks, the official course began. First, the group came to the Kido practice ground. All the students in the entire class sat down in groups of 4 and waited to play. Luyu and Hitsugaya Toshiro sit last. Because they have just joined, they just need to watch and learn, and they don't need to go to practice. Special class, the first group, get out of the queue. As the teacher shouted, the first group of 4 first graders stepped forward and began to perform Shinigami's signature Hado as required. Chapter 12. When it was Hinamori Momo's turn, the 2 ponytail girl confidently gathered Reiatsu and chanted, "O King's Landing, the mask of flesh and blood, Vientiane, flapping its wings, who bears the name of man. Burning heat and riots, isolating the raging waves, and marching to the south. Hado number 31 Red Cannon." Quote. The little girl's eyes were sharp, her spirit was concentrated, she read out the chant very proficiently, and hit the target with a precise strike. Although the power is insufficient, and there are still many immature points in the release timing and rhythm, the style of Master Kido has already begun to emerge. Amid the admiration around, the little girl returned to her original position briskly. During this period, she saw Luyu, who gave her a thumbs up, showing a sweet smile. The little boy stretched his neck and looked at the classmate who played Kido with eager and envious eyes. The 4 basic skills of Shinigami, Zonquan Ghost Walk, are all amazing. Gorgeous and dazzling Kido is indeed very attractive to the uninitiated. Kido is not difficult, just do it, Luyu said casually. Of course he didn't say it for nothing. Whether it is the super soul body or the ability to control everything, he can control Kido for a short time. After a period of observation, Luyu has quickly mastered the trick of Kido, which is to use the power of Shinigami to manipulate the spirit. It's just that this requires extremely strong control in a specific spiritual channel. Of course, the power of Shinigami, which is strong enough, is the most important thing. In Luyu's observation, the spiritual power in the body of ordinary people is like smoke, which is gas-like, not only small but also small in density, and it collapses when touched. The spiritual power of the first-year students of the True Spirit Academy is like a liquid like mercury. Although it is still not hard enough, it is enough to produce Reiatsu in the conventional sense. The spiritual power of the officer level, Reiatsu is a stone brick, and it is difficult for the alternate Shinigami to break the defense. A pervert like Zaraki Kenpachi, the leader of the 11th division, but the spiritual power Reiatsu accidentally leaked from the body surface is already as hard as a steel plate, an ordinary Shinigami can't stand it at all. Lu Yu came to the conclusion that the low-level Kido needed at least the solid spiritual power of bricks. If your own spiritual power is not up to the standard, you can only assist in chanting mantras to enhance your spiritual power Reiatsu. It is also possible to release Kido by leapfrogging with powerful control or other aids, such as the Kido series Zanpakudo. Of course, the stronger Reiatsu is, the stronger Kido is. In the case of Reiatsu's crushing, it is not surprising that Kido is completely overpowered by someone else's abandoned chant. Back then, Captain Aizen's black coffin was so handsome. Before Lu Yu was just envious, now he thinks of surpassing. His confidence lies in the super punch-in system and the omnipotence that can dominate everything. The sealed state after Shikai is fundamentally different from the ordinary sealed state. For example, the sealed state in Lu Yu's hand, if you look closely, you will find that it is a sword with two sides. This is fundamentally different from the ordinary sword and the sword. At the same time, all things in the form of sealed state can also exert a little power, enhancing Lu Yu's ability to control various skills and Reiatsu. The ability to dominate everything is actually divided into two aspects. The first is to help him quickly master various powers and skills. The second is to forcibly dominate a single target that is already familiar with, generally only non-living bodies. The ability of the first aspect can be well exerted in the form of sealed state. Therefore, Lu Yu has been confident that he can successfully perform Kido after a period of intensive study and study. The realization on Kido, his half-day contemplation, is much stronger than the 2-month effort of others. The ability of all kinds of things is so overbearing. I really don't know what to say. The untouchables of Rukongai dare to speak out. Over there, I heard Lu Yu say that Kido is easy to learn, and Hitsugaya Toshiro hadn't said anything yet, and a boy dressed as a noble couldn't help but sneer. Bastard. The little boy suddenly froze, and he didn't even want to think that he slashed the neck of the person who made the noise. The original Hitsugaya Toshiro was not so aggressive. But this man's fault was for being rude to Lu Yu, and if Hitsugaya Toshiro himself was mocked, he wouldn't be so angry. Although he doesn't say it, Lu Yu is the benefactor and good friend of little boy. Today's Hitsugaya Toshiro still doesn't know what the big picture is, only that no one can provoke Lu Yu. After taking such a slap knife, the mocking student's face turned red, and he was about to have a seizure. This time Hitsugaya Toshiro didn't use Reiatsu. The harm was not great, but it was extremely insulting. On the other side, a tall, gloomy man spoke up. Yoshikawa don't have the same knowledge as these savages. Unlike some beasts, we have noble demeanor and etiquette. Boy, this is the last time. If you dare to tarnish the honor of our nobles again, I want you to die. Humph. Hitsugaya Toshiro was a good person after all, and although he was still a little bit angry, he didn't take any further action. Lu Yu took a deep look at the two nobles, and wrote a yellow card first. Red card kills. Coincidentally, everyone's Kido drills are complete. Without saying a word, the little boy stood up and read the chant to the target imitating Hinamori Momo just now. Seeing Hitsugaya Toshiro's move, Hinamori Momo clenched his fists with a nervous expression. Teacher Kido cheered Hitsugaya Toshiro, a talented young man, with an encouraging look. There are two geniuses in the class, and he is a proud teacher. The rest of the classmates, including Abarai Renji and Kira Izuru, were all puzzled, and at the same time not very convinced that Hitsugaya Toshiro would succeed. As for a few noble students, they laughed disdainfully. Trash civilians, really consider themselves a genius. Don't be ashamed here, go back to Rukongai. Trash, what are you pretending to do? Originally, Hitsugaya Toshiro was just rough on Kido, plus being disturbed by those people. Hado, who was supposed to be able to form, suddenly dissipated. Teacher Kido was a little disappointed, but still comforted Hitsugaya Toshiro and said, "It doesn't matter, you are still young and you have done a good job." Several aristocratic teenagers even sneered coldly. Trash is trash. I can't hold it anymore, get out of here. Sure enough, there should be no hope for the untouchables of Rukongai. Seraiti has to rely on us nobles. Lu Yu snorted coldly. The voice was not loud, but the few noble students who screamed the most were as if struck by lightning, and their faces turned pale. For a moment, it was as if they were being targeted by some terrifying predatory overlord. In a trance, they thought that they had encountered the legendary virtual. After Lu Yu snorted coldly, the surroundings suddenly became quiet. Then, he dodged to the side of the blushing little boy who was at a loss, and said softly, "Look. Follow me to guide Reiatsu." Chapter 13. After communicating with Hitsugaya Toshiro, Lu Yu glanced back at the nobles who started barking again, and said coldly, "Keep your dog's eyes open, this is the Kido of the commoners you look down on." After speaking, he raised his hand casually and said loudly, "Hado number 31, Kai artillery." In an instant, a huge fireball that was bigger than Hado from everyone present flew out of Lu Yu's hands, directly smashing the target in front of him. Shocked, seeing the Kido test target that was shattered into a spiritual child on the field, everyone felt a chill in their hearts. If it hits people, there is still life. Is this really a red cannon? Why are the power and speed so different from them? We're afraid we've fired a fake red cannon. Several nobles who were originally very arrogant looked horrified. Among them, Tsunayashiro Masao exclaimed in exclamation, "Abandon the chant. This is impossible." The mere pariah turned out to be. The pariah who has always looked down on him has mastered advanced skills that he has no clue about, and his jealous eyes are red. Teacher Kido was completely taken aback. Such great power. It's still abandoned chant. It was only vaguely heard before that this transfer student named Lu Yu is not much different in talent than the talented young Hitsugaya Toshiro. But there is not much difference there, this is completely beyond suspense. Hinamori Momo, who was still worried about Lu Yu and Hitsugaya Toshiro, was relieved. Brother Lu Yu has become more and more reliable, even a little strange, but not annoying. On the contrary, it is very reassuring. Lu Yu's behavior of slapping the nobles in the face made her very enjoyable, but also felt that this kind of thinking was not good. After all, they were all classmates. However, Lu Yu standing tall and straight on the court is really dazzling, just like the sun. Abarai Renji, the future vice-captain of the 6th Division, sat up quietly. At this moment, his throat moved lightly, his expression solemn. Is this the transfer student? Sure enough, it is not ordinary, and it can even be said to be too strong. The movement was so fast just now that I couldn't see clearly. This guy is a bit strong. If he encounters such an enemy in Rukongai, he will definitely stay far away. This is the survival law of the last few districts: the strong are respected, and never go against the wishes of the strong. Hitsugaya Toshiro first glanced at Lu Yu with grateful eyes, then was speechless. Aren't you going to show me? Is that how you demonstrate? This ghost can learn it. Do you think everyone is a monster like you? Soon, however, Hitsugaya Toshiro was acutely aware of something. There seems to be a certain rhythm in the remaining Reiatsu waves around Lu Yu. It was an indescribable feeling. With a thought, the little boy chanted again. This time it was released successfully. The whistling fireball hit the test target accurately. It's great. It's a success. The little boy jumped and jumped happily, sweeping away the haze before. Seeing Hitsugaya Toshiro dancing and jubilant, Lu Yu smiled slightly, and quietly released Shikai, who was full of everything. Just now, he forcibly dominated the remnants of the area, Reiatsu, into the shape of the red cannon. With the reference of the surrounding spiritual power fluctuations, Hitsugaya Toshiro easily used the intermediate Hado red artillery. The audience was silent for a while, and then the surrounding alternate Shinigami frantically flocked to Lu Yu's side. Student Lu Yu, I have a question on Kido that I don't quite understand. Can you ask me privately? Lu Yu, do you have a girlfriend? Lu Yu, are you and Hinamori really just friends? The strength of others is the matter of others, and the strength of oneself is the foundation. Being able to come to Spiritual Arts Academy, that is not the pursuit of power, but the thought of becoming a Shinigami, has something to do. In their eyes, Lu Yu, who can help people become stronger, is a god. Looking at the students who surrounded Lu Yu to ask questions, Teacher Kido and Hitsugaya Toshiro looked at each other and had the same thoughts in their hearts. We seem to be outsiders. Just like that, Kido class ends and Kendo class begins. In the Kendo training room, Lu Yu met several classmates through the introduction of Hinamori Dao. Among them, he already knew the names of two people. One is Abarai Renji, who has red hair and a face full of rebelliousness, and almost wrote the words, "I'm not easy to mess with," on his face. The potential is good, and he will be the vice captain at a young age in the future. In the original work, he also appeared very early, and he learned Bankai from the time of the protagonist Ichigo's front and back feet. It can be said that he is young and promising. As for the record, I can only say that Zabumaru is still not resistant to shattering. At this time, the always arrogant Abarai Renji looked at Lu Yu with a bit of caution. At a glance, Lu Yu could see through the awe that the other party had concealed very well. He smiled slightly, not taking it to heart. Lu Yu, who knew his origin, knew that without this reverence, Abarai Renji and Rukia could not have come to Seraiti from the hellish South 78th district alive. The other has yellow hair, the left side of the hair covers the left cheek, blue eyes, the right eye. This person is the future vice captain of the 3rd Division, Kira Izuru. He still has a warm smile all the time. Unlike Aizen, this is the real Asahi, and the smile on his face is also sincere. It's a pity that I met an unreliable captain and was thrown into prison. Hitsugaya Toshiro greeted several people one by one very politely, without the air of a genius boy. Facing the admiration of the people around him, Lu Yu also responded indifferently and politely. He noticed that there was no special emblem on the clothes of the people who came over, indicating that they were all civilians. On the other side, the gloomy man gathered a group of aristocratic students, who were very different from this side, and his speaking habits seemed out of tune with the people here. That bastard's name is Masao Tsunayashiro. What is the branch house of the 5 noble families? The dogs next to him are named Yoshikawa and Kondo. Abarai Renji keenly noticed Lu Yu's eyes and immediately introduced it enthusiastically. After listening to Abarai Renji's words, Lu Yu nodded slightly, completely ignoring these people. What about the 5 nobles? The 46 rooms high above have not been slaughtered like a dog by Aizen in the future. With a super punch in system and all kinds of things, Lu Yu thought he would be no worse than Aizen. The so-called nobles, he really did not pay attention. These people are honest and okay. If they dare to fry their hair again, Lu Yu can arrange them at will. With captain-level Reiatsu, absolute stealth and shikai, he is full of confidence. In less than a month, Lu Yu changed from an ordinary person without Reiatsu to a strong man who the entire Seraiti could not handle at will. He really wanted to see if the so-called aristocratic demeanor could be used as steel. Chapter 14. In the kendo room, after a brief chat, several people dispersed and began to practice kendo or use wooden knives to learn from each other. At the corner, Hitsugaya Toshiro was practicing alone with the sealed state. And Lu Yu didn't rush into kendo practice, just quietly observed and asked a few questions to the kendo teacher beside him. Your question is a good question. Are you really a first-year student? Did you really not practice kendo before? Hearing Lu Yu's question, Shinigami, who was in charge of teaching kendo, lit up. The connoisseur knows if there is any stock as soon as he opens his mouth. Just a few questions were asked from this rising genius, who displayed surprising spirituality. It would be impossible to ask such a question if it hadn't been for a long time in the practice of kendo and some achievements. What he didn't know was that Lu Yu was the first to come into contact with kendo today, a complete novice. However, with the ability of all kinds of things and his own analysis and observation, Lu Yu suddenly understood the key to kendo. He is not ready to let go of the 4 basic skills of Zonquan Ghost Walk. Gen means kendo, fist means white hits, walking means shunpo, and ghost means kido. Each of them takes a long time to cultivate, which is still under the premise of talent. If you don't have talent, you can't achieve anything in your life. So the omnipotent warrior is a luxury for ordinary Shinigami, but for Lu Yu, it is only the most basic goal. As for Kido, Lu Yu has just gotten started, and he only needs a little learning and practice to reach the state of Grand Master. This alone will save him a lot of time. That's the horror of everything. This Zanpakudo, which is enough to dominate the world, shows unparalleled power just in Shikai state. To be honest, the vastness of the sealed state form has surpassed the Shikai of most Shinigami. The words of white hits are actually melee combat ability, and also Reiatsu's control ability. In this regard, Lu Yu is not weak. This is the foundation of the foundation. It needs to be improved gradually. It is not in a hurry for the time being. Then the rest can only start with kendo. Another great advantage of having a super soul body and everything is that it makes Lu Yu's thinking extremely sharp and clear. With a little concentration, some long-term memories that were thought to be forgotten emerge from the deepest part of my mind. Lu Yu recalled various memories of kendo in his previous life, combined with some experiences from the kendo teacher, and began to have an epiphany about kendo. After some comprehension, he eliminated some flashy theories, and only kept the most essential parts. Most of these insights are inspired by Shinigami's original works, and very few are based on kendo theories in other anime and movies. With the explanation of the kendo teacher and the analysis of all kinds of things, those kendo theories that seem outrageous are not considered castles in the air, and it is possible to realize them. Of course, only practice can be the best and fastest way to be verified. Lu Yu is still looking forward to it. The kendo skills of other worlds will shine brightly in his hands. Just as Lu Yu quickly learned kendo, the gloomy Tsunayashiro Masao gave Hitsugaya to Shiro, who was practicing kendo alone. Then, with arrogant steps, he walked up to Hitsugaya to Shiro and provocatively said, "Dwarf, what's the point of practicing alone? Come and try it with me." Hitsugaya to Shiro didn't lift his head, just concentrated on waving the sealed state to practice alone. What nonsense swordsmanship you have. Sure enough, kendo shouldn't let you get involved. Seeing that the other party dared to ignore him, Tsunayashiro Masao was furious. After swinging the knife heavily, Hitsugaya to Shiro just said coldly, "Go away." Being contradicted by Hitsugaya to Shiro like this, Tsunayashiro Masao was furious, and he deliberately said loudly, "Untouchables like you really don't have the guts to compete with this uncle. After all, I'm not a fake genius like you. The genius of the nobles is the real genius." Tsunayashiro Masao enjoys delicious snacks and uses various cultivation resources at will, so he is naturally tall and mighty. In the entire first-year class, even the burly Abarai Renji was a little shorter than this nobleman. Of all the people, only Lu Yu, who was equally tall, could overwhelm each other in aura. Such a little giant wants to learn swordsmanship with a child less than 1 meter away, which is the same as O'Neill wanting to fight a child alone, which is clearly bullying. Masao Tsunayashiro, who is tall and has a long arm, has more room to shoot than Hitsugaya to Shiro, who has not yet fully developed. Only this point can be invincible in the kendo competition. This is not sparring at all, it is bullying, it is humiliation. Over there, Lu Yu thought about it, but didn't stop it immediately. Even if he already regards Xiaobai as a friend in his heart, he cannot always protect each other unconditionally. This is equivalent to depriving the other side of the opportunity to grow, which is equivalent to harming the other side. Speaking of which, Hitsugaya to Shiro was no longer alone. The other party brought Lu Yu and Hinamori Momo, a type of Rukongai-born student, inside and out. Hitsugaya to Shiro no longer refused, and immediately picked up the wooden knife and said coldly, "Stop talking nonsense, let's do it. You brought this on your own, don't say I bullied the small." At the beginning of the battle, Tsunayashiro Masao shamelessly used his height advantage to constantly suppress Hitsugaya to Shiro. Thanks to the background of the 5 major families, these noble children have been exposed to the practice of Zongquan Ghost Walk since childhood. For the cultivation of the 4 fundamentals, they are much more than the first-year students, and even stronger than the average 6th grade students. The advantages of body size and strength coupled with superb kendo skills make Tsunayashiro Masao have the advantage in the fight of Hitsugaya to Shiro. He shouted frantically, "What's the matter? Are you not a genius? Didn't you Kido learn fast just now? Keep going crazy." Hitsugaya to Shiro retreated steadily, but he gritted his teeth and persevered with all his might. Hinamori Momo, who was on the side, looked helpless with red eyes. My brother was bullied, but he was powerless to resist. How hopeless it felt. She was completely unwilling and helpless. Why do this? Are we not companions? Seeing a child being bullied by a tall and strong man like this, others were also very indignant. It's just that due to Tsunayashiro Masao's noble name, no one dares to come forward. Besides, Hitsugaya to Shiro hasn't given up yet, and it's not easy for others to intervene. I didn't even look at the kendo teacher and didn't stop me, I just watched. Lu Yu didn't intervene, but his expression and eyes were extremely cold. Looking at Tsunayashiro Masao's eyes was like looking at a dead man. However, he did not take action to interrupt this unfair fight. The reason is the same as that of the kendo teacher who stood idly by. Although Hitsugaya Toshiro was attacked one after another and was embarrassed, his fighting spirit was still tenacious. And during the battle, this talented young man learned to protect Reiatsu without a teacher. The scattered swordsmanship and short stature put Hitsugaya Toshiro at an absolute disadvantage. However, this desperation coupled with his tenacious fighting spirit has unearthed his potential. This is exactly what Liu Yu wants to see. In the future, he may form a team, and Xiaobai, who has a deep relationship with him and has great potential, is definitely the best companion. Chapter 15. At the critical moment, Hitsugaya Toshiro had no time to think, so he could only use his milk strength to hold the wooden sword tightly, and at the same time use every ounce of Reiatsu to protect his body. Tsunayashiro Masao's swordsmanship does have merit, making a wooden sword dance airtight. If it wasn't for Hitsugaya Toshiro's constant use of Reiatsu to protect his body, he would have been scarred by the stormy attack. But it was so, he still suffered a few times, and he only felt the pain, but he still insisted on gritting his teeth, without any thought of giving up. Because Hitsugaya Toshiro knew that he was not fighting alone, with Liu Yu and Hinamori Momo supporting him. It doesn't matter if you lose, you must not implicate the two closest people. This determination made Hitsugaya Toshiro's control over Reiatsu soar. It was precisely because he saw the opportunity for Hitsugaya Toshiro to grow up that Liu Yu did not immediately teach the innocent Tsunayashiro Masao. Unable to attack for a long time, Tsunayashiro Masao felt restless in his heart. He had hit this kid several times, but even though his face turned blue in pain, the kid still gritted his teeth and didn't cry out. It's really disgusting to be a low-level pariah struggling to survive. Tsunayashiro Masao, who was finally impatient, took a deep breath, mobilized a large number of Reiatsu, and disappeared instantly. Then he came to Hitsugaya Toshiro and slashed the opponent's defenseless wrist. Seeing Masao Tsunayashiro's sudden flashing action, Liu Yu's pupils shrank. Shunpo. No, not right. It's just a prototype, not a complete Shunpo. With this kid's Reiatsu in accumulation, he can't cast a full Shunpo yet. Your swordsmanship and footwork are good, but the next second is mine. When Liu Yu Reiatsu moved, the forest around his waist instantly changed form and entered the Shikai state. Under the cover of absolute concealment, he quietly activated the ability of all kinds of things. Suddenly, a lot of information about Shunpo and Kendo entered Liu Yu's mind. His brain is running at high speed, constantly synthesizing what he has learned and seen in the past few days. In a short period of time, Liu Yu actually saw through Tsunayashiro Masao's swordsmanship routines and the beginner Shunpo. It has to be said that the children of nobles still have merit. In Kendo, it's good to say that the residents of Rukongai have no way to learn advanced skills such as Shunpo that involve space. After all, although Shunpo is called walking, it is actually a real space transfer, and it is impossible to learn it without the guidance of someone who knows it and enough Reiatsu. In Seraiti, only the official Shinigami have the opportunity to come into contact with Shunpo's practice. In the original work, even if it is a captain-level character, not everyone is Grandmaster Shunpo. The difficulty of practicing this technique can be imagined. Tsunayashiro Masao, a branch house child, was qualified to be exposed to this advanced technique in the first grade. The profound background of the five nobles can be seen from this Madara. However, these are not worth mentioning in front of Liu Yu's peerless talents. Those high-ranking nobles would never have imagined that the advanced skills they monopolized with so much effort could be completely cracked by someone who only needed a few breaths. Such talent is simply enchanting to the extreme. Over there, Hitsugaya Toshiro was caught off guard by Tsunayashiro Masao, and the wooden sword in his hand fell to the ground. At the same time, his right wrist was red and swollen, obviously not badly injured. Although it is a wooden sword, Tsunayashiro Masao did not keep his hands completely, and he is very powerful. If Toshiro Reiatsu was not strong, he would be seriously injured this time. Tsunayashiro Masao ignored the angry gazes around him and mocked. Untouchables are untouchables. Even if you are lucky and have a little talent, you can't hide the stench in your bones. You untouchables should stay in the cave and play with stones, and Kendo should be the privilege of the nobles. Although Hitsugaya Toshiro has the heart to refute, but if he loses, and he is an honest boy who is inevitably lacking in confidence. In the Shinigami world, after all, strength is still the most respected, and the winner or loser is nothing more than that. On the other side, The red-haired Abarai Renji clenched his fists, but finally lowered his arrogant head helplessly. Although very unwilling, but the strength and identity of the other party are there, he has nothing to do. In itself, Abarai Renji also feels inferior because of his origin. The nobles of Seraiti were like a mountain that held him down. Sometimes, Abarai Renji really thinks it's better to go back to Rukongai, at least to be free there without looking at other people's faces. However, he wanted to prove that he was no worse than those so-called nobles. It's just that this road is harder and longer than he thought before. At this moment, Lu Yu said, "If your so-called nobleman is so powerful, then I really want to see it." Glancing at Lu Yu fiercely, Tsunayashiro Masao raised his head and said, "I don't like the look in your eyes. I will make you cry and repent for tarnishing the honor of our nobles." If compared to Kido, Tsunayashiro Masao naturally would not dare. However, each of the 4 basic skills of Shinigami and Zonquan Ghost Walk takes a lot of time and energy. For ordinary Shinigami, it is not easy to achieve a Grandmaster in his entire life. Lu Yu is young, even if it is because of his talent that he can quickly become Kido, but the gap between them in Kendo is still obvious. He, Tsunayashiro Masao, was born in the 5 noble families of Seraiti. He has been taught swordsmanship by a famous teacher since he was a child. He not only has a self-contained ancestral swordsmanship, but also has sufficient resources. How could such a well-trained and meticulously cultivated kendo lose to a Rukongai pariah who has no foundation? Impossible. Then see if your noble swordsmanship can cure comminuted fractures. Lu Yu's expression was cold. "You move first. How dare you look down on me like this, bastard, look at the trick." Tsunayashiro turned his right hand, and the wooden knife in his hand stabbed straight at Lu Yu's vital point. This time, he was moved to kill. He only hated that what he had in his hand was not a real sword, so he couldn't kill the defiant boy in front of him on the spot. The Tsunayashiro family is one of the 5 noble families. For thousands of years, it has been passed down without interruption. We write the great history of Seraiti, and we control the great spirit book corridor. Without their Tsunayashiro family, the Soul Society would not exist at all. Under this glory, these pariahs are just not grateful, and they dare to bark at them. What a bunch of unfamiliar white-eyed wolves. If he knew what Tsunayashiro was thinking, Lu Yu would definitely sneer. Don't talk about a 1,000-year-old family, even the 10,000 years family, he will not take it seriously. Today, he is fighting nobles. The King of Spirits came, and Lu Yu was also able to type. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.